What do you see in terms of the opportunities for universities to align better with those policy agendas whilst they're delivering on their civic agenda?
Universities, to a point, they're apolitical, so they can come into a space with a sort of skin in the game, as in they care about their community, but they can convene communities. So it's taking the role of universities into a very different space, like being the civic centre. So, you know, growing up in the 80s in the school district, the civic centre where you'd go for everything, and it was this hub. And I think universities are a real a lighthouse in that space. And I think we do some great work with like our local primary schools, and some of the quotes that we've got with some of the impact work we've done with them is it's that Wrexham University is like my university, and I can see myself going there. And this is from a really area that's got a lower socioeconomic deprived area, and there's children we're engaging with are like, oh no, I really love Wrexham, and I can see myself there. And they never previously would have walked through the doors without some of the work we've done with those school children. We need leadership from policy. We need policy to understand communities more, and universities have got a role to translate that. We need to have everything data and evidence driven, but we've got to listen to the stories of communities and allow the system to understand those stories and shift to use the data, the stories, the head, the heart and the hands to then do something with and alongside communities to create the change that's sustainable. So I think sustainability, leadership and policy that connects closer to communities is
Absolutely.
What we need.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And I think what you mentioned there about storytelling is such a crucial part of the puzzle there, isn't it? And I think that really just demonstrates how universities can deliver impact, but can talk about it. We can showcase the work that's been done. I wonder whether you could share any examples, perhaps where a policy shift or a new idea or a new initiative opened up a new funding or partnership opportunity for universities to deliver on their civic work.
Yeah, there's one big one that we worked on. So through the public service boards, we do wellbeing assessments, which is something that the legislation requires us to do, which again is a big data to understand the wellbeing of a certain footprint. And at the time it was HEFCU, the Higher Education Funding Council. A strategic investment fund came up, and we used the evidence and pilot projects we'd done with children, young people, to say we want learning outside of the classroom. We want to engage in extracurricular learning that enables us to learn in different ways. So we secured the funding, and then we set about creating a regional model for Children's University. But it was so much more than that. We support those young people to engage in the cultural community, arts, creativity, sporting, active assets around them, and then they celebrate their learning through a passport to learn, and then they graduate with cap and gown. So it's about economic connectedness, aspiration, expectation, and for young people to see the trajectory of their life and where they can go in their futures. But we also looked at efficacy and self-advocacy around supporting young people with leadership training to do Bob Talks, which is a TED-style talk about what matters to them, so that actually they can use their voices to influence decision makers, and the system around themes around mental health and wellbeing and poverty stigma and all sorts of things. And then we also looked at the next level, was like, well, how do we use this project, this big project regionally, which is about 24 partners, how do we then enable it to go into homes? We worked with a food supplier, and we developed these wellbeing boxes to take food home, and that the young people could cook with their families. So we did 10,000 meals with young people. Worked with 51 schools and 1,200 pupils. But
that's fantastic.
The evidence, and this is where the evidence and the research is so powerful, that the research report we did said we need to focus on the deep-rooted deprivation, which is unsurprising, but actually those young people that were from those really deep-rooted deprived areas performed far better in Children's University.